Well, the federal government has said that all new vehicles sold must be electric or plug-in hybrid by 2035, and it's been met with mixed reviews. The provincial government says it's going to be a costly transition. Folks will need to install charging infrastructure in their homes, will need more charging stations, and we'll have to expand the grid. And while some provinces are offering purchase incentives, we don't have that here. In fact, SGI charges EV drivers a $150 annual road improvement fee. So today on Blue Sky, we've gathered a panel of EV experts. We'll hear from SaskPower, as well as two people who drive EVs in this province. And so they are standing by to take your calls. Want to know how EVs perform in this frigid cold? Well, we'll get you the answer. You can ask anything today. 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Well, two guests who will be with us for the hour is Matthew Pointer, who's with the Saskatchewan Electric Vehicle Association. He is in our Regina studio. So, Matthew, hello to you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. And then right next to me here in Saskatoon is Tyler Kraus, Tesla Owners Club of Saskatchewan. He's with me here in our Saskatoon studio. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you bet.
So since you're next to me, Tyler, I'll start with you. I think the number one question that is on people's minds on a day like today when it's this cold, how does an EV perform here in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I mean, I get this question every winter, multiple times for sure. Yeah. On a day like today, I mean, things are great. I woke up this morning, went to work, no problems. Some people had to get boosted. I came over here today to visit with you. Again, no problems. You know, it heats up faster than any gas car I've ever had. It's more reliable. You know, there's no starting of the car. It's always just kind of on, right? It's like a phone, basically, or a computer on wheels. The only downside, really, is that it doesn't go as far in winter in the really frigid temperatures. But you know, I still make it work. I went to Jasper last year for my honeymoon in the middle of winter. Big snowstorm, made it there, no problem.
How cold were the temperatures? Do you remember?
So this would have been Christmas Day last year. We had about 8 inches of snow that morning, if you remember. And I think it was probably about -10, -15 that day. So, you know, not too bad, but we made it there, no problem.
Would you travel there in weather like this? Like how cold would it make you maybe pause and say, I'm not going to do this trip?
You know, I don't think, like, if you had asked me this question when I first got my car in 2018, I'd say, yeah, I probably wouldn't leave the city in less than, -20. But since then, we've had this explosion of infrastructure. There's now, at least 14 Tesla superchargers and even more of the universal fast chargers in Saskatchewan. So now there's really no limit. I would leave the city in -40, in a heartbeat. My vehicle is the longer range vehicle. So in summer, I get about 500 kilometers total range. On an average day like today, I'd probably get maybe closer to about 300, right? So it's still enough to get between the charging stations, but in a vehicle that's maybe less capable, it might be a bit more of an issue.
And that would affect the price, right? And we're going to get into all of this. There's actually so much to talk about when it comes to electric vehicles. But I mean, if you pay more for your vehicle, that part of the benefit is a longer range battery, a better battery.
Yeah,
right? It's like phones. Like my phone is not doing very well in the cold right now. I need an upgrade.
Yeah, you got it. No, that's exactly it. I mean, the more capability that you want, the more you're going to have to pay for it. So I think my car is about $10,000 more than the lower range model, right? So you do pay for that. There is a premium, but I mean, it's Saskatchewan. It's worth it. You should have all-wheel drive. You should have the longest battery you can afford.
Right.
But yeah, no, to answer the question, it's been great. It's been a great winter. Yeah.
Matthew, what's your experience in these cold temperatures?
My experience has been overwhelmingly positive. I've been driving electric for about 5 years now, and I believe that electric is the best vehicle in these temperatures, just because it's a simpler car, right? The battery packs are thermally managed. It's always warm. It's taking care of itself, even if I'm not thinking about it. I can leave my vehicle unplugged overnight at -40, fire up the app on my phone, preheat the car, heated steering wheel, heated seats. The car's piping hot in under 2 minutes.
You can fire up your app to do all that?
Yeah. And basically, I hop in the car, everything's defrosted, toasty warm, and away I go. It is very, very user-friendly, and it is a much better driving experience in the winter than a gasoline car, which takes much longer to warm up, and also has reduced driving distances as well. And that's something that nobody ever talks about with winter blends of fuel and worse aerodynamics and more dense air due to the cold and things like that. So I prefer to drive an electric vehicle in the wintertime, actually.
Can I ask you what kind of electric vehicle you have?
I drive a Tesla Model 3.
You drive a Tesla Model 3.
What is now considered a legacy model.
So I've actually lost track of who's all making electric vehicles. Like we were just talking about the Nissan Leaf. Beyond Teslas, are other electric vehicles doing as well in the winter? Tyler, I'll maybe ask that question of you.
Yeah, I mean, so I also have the same car as Matt. Actually, we got our cars about the same time in 2018, 2019. We in the Sask EV Club, we have a whole different breadth of cars. We have Nissan, we have guys driving vehicles from Hyundai, Kia. It's almost every manufacturer now is making an EV, and they're all trying to make them to that same standard as what Tesla kind of came out with a few years ago. So they're using, like Matt talked about, they're using glycol to heat and cool the batteries, which is really important for winter performance, right? I mean, your cell phone, if you notice, if you put it outside, it'll die in probably, 10 minutes? Mm-hmm. And it's because it doesn't have that heating system, right? And it doesn't have that thermal mass like a car does. So yeah, the other manufacturers are doing a great job as well. I think Tesla's still kind of leading the pack, but if you go out to any dealer right now and buy a brand new EV, they're going to be capable of driving in winter, and they're going to be more reliable and perform better than a gas car.
So why is there so much skepticism then when it comes to electric vehicles and the cold weather here, Matthew? What do you think was behind that?
I think there's a lot of old myths and misconceptions that are fairly pesky and like to hang around for the long term. I feel a lot of people remember maybe older electric models from 10 or 20 years ago. Maybe they've had negative experiences with other types of battery technology and things. They compare an electric car to their cell phone, right? And say, well, there's no way that this can last, when you had just mentioned that my phone might only last 10 minutes or so. The new technology that's coming out is light years ahead of even where it was even 5 years ago. And I mean, we're just in the early days of this. These cars are getting progressively better every year with better and better battery technology that is much more suited for the cold temperatures, as well as the thermal management and much less battery degradation as well over the long term. So these battery packs in these cars are lasting 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 kilometers on its original battery pack.
That's how many years? Because I think that is the other question that comes up with batteries. I think there's a concern that you'll purchase a vehicle and then you're going to have to replace the battery. So, Matthew, just maybe elaborate on that. What is the lifespan of a battery in an electric vehicle?
Sure. So a lot of the modern cars now, they're offering battery warranties, around the 200,000 kilometer range. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a gasoline vehicle that offers that type of drivetrain warranty. And we feel as time goes on, those warranties are only going to improve and get better, and they will be increasing maybe into the mid 200s for warranty, as well as degradation built into the warranty as well. So your battery pack won't lose be able to go below 80% battery health within the first, let's say, 5 to 8 years of ownership, which is a big thing. But when you look at the cost savings of driving electric over the long term versus gasoline, even if you did have to spend, let's say, $10,000 8 to 10 years from now replacing that battery pack, you've probably saved the equivalent of $25,000 to $30,000 on fuel and maintenance. So the cost benefit of an EV is much, much better than a gasoline vehicle.
Tyler, do you have anything to add on the lifespan of a battery?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I'm sure Matthew also knows this person as well, but there's a gentleman, his name's Daryl Kolowaski. He's in Alberta, and he owns a fleet of vehicles that are used for a taxi service in Kelowna. It's called Current Taxi. It's really interesting. They're all over the place there. And so he now his fleet's getting a little bit older, and he's starting to see how far he can push these vehicles. And he's got multiple Teslas that have over 500,000 kilometers on them and are still performing well with the original battery pack, which is incredible. So the longevity, I mean, we're already there. These cars are already 5 years old, and it just keeps getting better. So, and just another quick kind of number for you. My car has a warranty of about 8 years or 200,000 kilometers. I'm about halfway through that, and I've already saved enough money to purchase a battery. I've already saved $15,000 in gas.
And that's and how much does a battery cost?
It's about $15,000. Yeah, for my vehicle. Some are a little bit more or less, but yeah. if I wanted to buy one in cash today, it's about $15,000, and I've already saved that, and I'm only halfway through the warranty, right? So in another 5 years or 4 years, I mean, yeah, my warranty will be done, but I'll have saved $30,000 or more, and the cost of electricity is like a fraction of that. It's only I probably spend about $2,000-$3,000 on electricity in the last 5 years. I mean, it's peanuts.
I have one more battery question before we move on to some of the other questions that I've got here. But when it's all said and done, like the car is done, what kind of is there a recycling program for the batteries? Tyler, do you want to take that question?
Yeah. I mean, and Matt, feel free to chip in if you have some additional information as well. But I get this question a lot, and I think it's important. People drive these cars for environmental reasons, among other reasons, and it's important to be able to acknowledge, what happens at the end of life, right? Does it cost a lot more energy? Is it bad for the environment? And the answer is that yes, they can be recycled, which is great.
Tesla here?
Yeah. So there's 2 places in Canada. I think there's one in maybe 1 or 2 in Quebec and Ontario, and then I think there's one in BC near Vancouver. I believe one of the companies is called Li-Cycle. You can look that up. They're just getting going with things. They're not super high volume yet. And there's also a couple places in the States you can find YouTube videos of how they actually recycle these batteries. So they are doing it already. The good news is we haven't had to recycle a lot of batteries yet. Over the coming years, 5 to 10 years, you'll see it. There'll be a big demand for it. But the easiest way to break it down for people is to say, like, you have basically low-grade ore, right? So you have this battery pack, you can grind it up, and you can build a new battery. No matter what you do, it's going to be easier to do that than go dig in the earth and have to bring up low-grade ore to remake these batteries. So they're very valuable. They're not just going to the dump and they're going to sit there and rot. There's no way. It's like throwing away gold.
Right.
Right. So
Matthew, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just echo Tyler's message there, and basically saying that we don't really have a huge need for recycling as of yet, just because we haven't had a lot of batteries that have failed. Now, there are companies that are in the background, certainly getting up and running to make sure that they can handle that volume of battery minerals when it comes time. But yeah, to throw a battery pack out is absolutely ridiculous when those minerals are worth thousands and thousands of dollars. And it lowers the carbon footprint of the next battery pack by recycling those minerals. You'll be able to make electric vehicles for cheaper prices with those recycled minerals. And this kind of flies in the face of a lot of the naysayers saying that electric vehicles require massive amounts of resources and stuff, when it turns out that fossil fuel vehicles require 4 times the amount of raw materials that an electric vehicle requires at the current mining practices. And for the EV industry, that's only going to improve and get better.
So how do you both know all of this? I guess, like, you probably did some research before making a purchase, but why? How do you know all this stuff about these vehicles, Matthew?
I was mostly dragged into this by Facebook trolls on Tinder and the internet.
Yeah.
So I'm also an expert.
Skeptical?
Yeah, I'm an expert in the power grid and all kinds of battery minerals and plugins and the electrical grid. And
are you being sarcastic, or do you really feel like you've had to educate yourself?
Well, people throw all this stuff at us all the time, and I'm sure Tyler can relate. But initially, I wanted a high-performing car that was environmentally efficient, and I could charge at home because I'd had some bad internal combustion engine cars, and I just like technology, so that's what sort of drew it to me in the first place.
Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. So, I mean, I do have a background in engineering, so I do have a little bit to back up some of the science part of it. But, I mean, I'm not an electrical engineer, right? So I'm structural, so I have a bit of that background. But, I mean, yeah, bulk of the information comes from just talking to experts in the industry. I've talked to people that actually work here in Saskatchewan, here in Saskatoon at the Light Source in battery research. So I've talked to people that are more educated on the subject than I am, and I've learned from them. And a lot of it, like Matt said, it's been in response to people who have challenged me or who are skeptical. And I don't fault anyone who asks questions ever. I think it's always important. That's how you learn. I mean, a big part of what we do at these organizations, at Sask EV and SIVA and the Tesla Owners Club, is educating, right? Yeah. But a lot of times we get people who can be a bit rude, and so sometimes we got to back that up with good facts and good science.
I want to pull in a question that somebody has sent us already. We already have a lot of emails and a lot of callers, and I've got several questions regarding the federal government's goals. But let's just get one question in here before we move on. So Anna writes, just wondering about tow capacity on EVs. I'm interested in an electric vehicle, but have a small trailer, 4,000 pounds, that I need to tow. Good question, Anna. Matthew, do you know the answer to that? What can you tow with some of these?
Well, there's a fleet of electric pickup trucks that are scheduled to hit the market over the coming years. The Tesla Cybertruck has recently been released and is basically being manufactured as we speak. I would say on average, our towing capacity for these new EV trucks are somewhere around the 10 or 11,000 pound mark. Or ton, or pound, sorry, 11,000 pounds. But when towing at the max capacity of those vehicles, I would say you'd probably lose, on average, about 50% of your capacity or your mileage.
Of your range.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It would affect the range.
And that's no different than gasoline or diesel vehicles either, by the way.
Right. Tyler, do you have anything to add to that about towing capacity of some electric vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, some of the SUVs can tow like maybe 3,500 pounds, 4,000. And then like Matt said, yeah, the trucks are somewhere around 10 to 11,000 pounds. So they are getting there. You know, we're getting more products in the market that are more capable. Unfortunately, you know, I don't have as much experience with towing because I have a car, a sedan. But it's coming. Yeah.
But it's a question that a lot of people have, and I think that's why everybody's looking at Ford F-150s and just what's coming down the line. Okay, so part of the reason why we're talking about this is because last month the federal government set this goal for the sale of EVs. They are mandating that electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles must make up 20% of sales by 2025, 60% by 2030, and then all the sales of new vehicles by 2035. So is that a realistic goal, Tyler?
Yes, and I can say this with certainty because there's a bit of a catch here. And while I think it would be great if every vehicle was battery electric, this mandate, it allows for plug-in hybrid. And those are vehicles, for those that don't know, those are vehicles that you can choose. You can either use gas or you can use electricity that you've charged from your wall in your garage or at your house. And so what that allows for is for people who maybe they live in a remote area or an area without charging infrastructure, they can basically drive their car the same as they would their gas car. They can fill it up with gas, they can burn that gas, and they don't actually have to use electricity. Those vehicles are more energy efficient. You get regenerative braking that recharges the battery like a regular hybrid. And so at the end of the day, if everybody bought a plug-in hybrid, nothing would have to change as far as infrastructure. You could still just keep driving it as you are. Now, that probably won't happen. A lot of people are going to buy the battery electric, and that will require a little bit more of a grid upgrade. You're going to have to upgrade the house and that kind of stuff. But to answer the question, is it possible? Absolutely. Will it happen? I think we'll see.
Okay, I'll throw in one more question before we check in with David Shield. Matthew, what does an individual need to do in order to make that purchase, to be able to charge it at home? Like, what are the infrastructure requirements of an individual? Matthew?
First off, I would just suggest people consult an electrician, get their panel checked out at their house or wherever it is that they plan on doing the majority of their charging. 90% of charging happens at home. So you would like to have a reliable, effective charger, basically wherever your residence may be. And then, consulting with the electrician, they'd be able to tell you exactly how much capacity you have remaining, or you might be able to get something figured out with a switch to basically choose whether you're doing your clothes dryer or basically charging your EV. So you can use what the existing capacity of your panel has and basically flip it over to one or the other. Most of the time, people are good enough to get away with 32 amp 240 in most cases, and that will easily charge your car overnight and give you plenty of capacity in order to make sure you wake up with a full charge every morning and are way to go on your merry way.
We're talking about electric vehicles today. You can call us with your questions, 1-800-716-2221, or email bluesky@cbc.ca. I've been speaking with Matthew Pointer and Tyler Kraus. They both drive Teslas. They are members of the Saskatchewan Electric Vehicle Association. But I also want to bring someone else into the conversation. James Fick is the lead consultant on EVs for SaskPower, and he joins us on the line right now. Hi, James.
Hi, Alicia. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. So we were just talking about what the individual may need to do if they purchase an electric vehicle and they want to charge it at home. How is SaskPower helping support the transition to electric vehicles?
Sure. Yeah. Well, SaskPower kind of sees its role in a variety of ways, right? I mean, first and foremost, we want to kind of support our customers, and that comes both through things like education. Making sure our customers have the resources they need to make an informed decision when deciding if an EV is right for them. And then next, it really comes down to the infrastructure and how do we support the transition to having more electric vehicles on our road, whether that be kind of the grid itself or when it comes to charging stations, and as well as kind of looking at other solutions that will help complement the transition, looking at ways that we can support our customers in intelligently charging their vehicles and things like that.
So let's talk about charging stations first. How
Sure.
many are there in Saskatchewan?
It's not something we typically track. I mean, I think that the last numbers that I had, we're kind of in the range of about maybe between 70 and 80 sites, kind of late last year, and that includes both kind of like what Tyler alluded to. That includes both Tesla sites as well as kind of some of the more universal sites.
And whose responsibility is it to create these charging stations?
Yeah, right now. So right now, when it comes to kind of the public charging stations, you typically have both a site host and a network operator. So the network operator be kind of comparable to a cell phone network operator. So you think of companies like a Flow or a ChargePoint, and then you have site hosts. So that would kind of be the gas station or the retailer that hosts the charging station. And so depending on the particular relationship, one or both of those parties can be responsible for owning and installing the stations.
Okay, I want to go back to Matthew and Tyler just to hear where they're seeing this infrastructure, where we're missing it. So, Tyler, I know just even in my own experience, I'll drive somewhere and be at a Walmart and like, oh, there's some charging stations, and I'm a bit surprised sometimes when I see them, just because I'm not sure where to look for them. So where are they? Where are we missing some? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think a lot of people don't notice them. They're kind of hiding. It's not like a gas station where they're right on the corner of the road, big signage. The Tesla ones and some of the other brands, they do have some nice lights and stuff. But yeah, sometimes they can be hard to spot. So what we do as EV owners is we reference a website called plugshare.com, and they also have an app for your phone. So anyone out there listening, if you're curious where the charging stations are in Saskatchewan, go to that website, plugshare.com, and it kind of shows you a nice map. So, the areas where we have good infrastructure right now, I would say Saskatoon and Regina, very well covered. There's lots of opportunities to charge there. And then along the major highways. So the number one highway across Canada, completely plastered with chargers. You can drive anywhere. And then also, the Highway 16 is now covered with chargers, which has been really good. So like I said, I drove.
So you can get to Edmonton?
Yeah. Go to Edmonton, go to Jasper. And then the other direction, you can go all the way into Manitoba on that highway. And then, of course, we have Davidson, which is great, right between Saskatoon and Regina. And then recently we got a charger in Outlook, and we got one in Kindersley, which is really important because up until now, to get to Calgary, I've had to either go south or north, right? Go to Swift Current and then go across. And that's been a bit of a pain. But, recently in the last, I think about 2 months ago, we finally got one in Kindersley. So now it cuts our trip down by 3 hours. And now the difference in time is probably close to about an hour and a half versus driving a gas car, which is, in my opinion, worth it.
Matthew, where's the most surprising, unexpected spot where you've been able to charge your vehicle?
Family and friends' houses, actually. I've got quite a kit of random plugs in my car. So if I go kind of to the middle of nowhere, whether it be camping at a campground or go to a family member's house, I can plug in with a variety of different plugs and easily charge up overnight and have no issue. But the DC fast chargers, as far as where we're looking at deficiencies, would certainly be in the rural areas around the province, especially in those agricultural centers and things. And with the pickup trucks and other farm-related vehicles that'll be hitting the market here in the next few years, we're certainly wanting to push more into those secondary highways and rural areas to increase, the amount of infrastructure, but also reliable and high power infrastructure as well, so we can get a quick turnaround to get those vehicles back on the road.
So, James, I'll come back to you on this. You are the lead consultant on EVs for SaskPower. So from your perspective, what is next when it comes to getting the infrastructure that Saskatchewan needs? Infrastructure meaning the charging stations.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think kind of SaskPower's first step when it came to infrastructure was our EV infrastructure program that's wrapped up, and will produce kind of nine new charging stations throughout the province, serving some kind of key communities. Maybe some of those key agricultural centers. Think of places like Davidson, Outlook, Yorkton, and others. Going forward, we're kind of looking at all avenues to make sure that we're kind of readily involved in supporting the increase in electric vehicles, different programs and opportunities, whether that could be an extension of the past program or other avenues, because we recognize that there continue to be gaps, and SaskPower certainly has a role to play in supporting kind of those gaps being filled.
Can you just, sorry, maybe I didn't catch this the first time, but the past program,
Sure.
what exactly is that?
Sure, that was the EV infrastructure program.
Okay.
So that program leveraged funding from both SaskPower as well as Natural Resources Canada, and provided funding to third parties in the province who were interested in building and hosting fast chargers.
Okay. Now, when you're looking at the grid as a whole, and with the goal that the federal government has set out here, how ready is Saskatchewan in that regard? What needs to happen?
I mean, so enhancing and modernizing our grid is something that we've already been working on. We're always looking to kind of prepare for new technologies, whether that's kind of increased electrification from vehicles or other technologies, remote monitoring, updating the metering and things like that, or meeting kind of any increase in demand. And so we're kind of in a near constant state of modernization. We regularly kind of forecast and analyze the trends in EV adoption to kind of get a sense of what they will look like here in Saskatchewan. And so we're always planning and strategizing on how we can best meet that need. And in some cases, it's certainly going to be infrastructure. In other cases, it's going to be kind of other solutions that we can look to kind of handle and deal with the increasing load. And I think, like any new device coming to coming on the system, we got to adjust and enhance all parts of the system to address the amount and timing of the new energy consumption. And like we've alluded to, and like you kind of laid out with the federal government mandates, the increase in demand will be gradual from EVs, but it is going to be quite large. And so we're really planning on how to serve the new call for power that will come.
Okay. Now, Tyler, I understand that you have a timer set up so you can charge your vehicle outside of peak grid usage. That's strategic. You're doing that on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Help me understand that.
Yeah, so SaskPower has kind of implemented this charging study. And for anyone out there that has an EV, you can sign up for this. Just look for it on SaskPower's website. And what they're doing is they're offering kind of a monthly incentive. I think it's $10 or $15 a month to charge at off-peak times. And also to, in return, we give them a bunch of data. And so, almost every EV can do this. You just go into the settings, either in the app or in the car, and you just select, charge after, whatever, midnight or after 10 p.m. And then, you plug the car in, you go eat dinner, you go to bed, and then at midnight, the car starts charging until it's full. And that's important because, that's when peak times are the lowest, right? That's when usage of electricity is low. And that can help SaskPower to kind of reduce the amount of infrastructure upgrades that they have to make. Everyone comes home at 5 p.m., they turn on the stove, they do their laundry. But after that, there's not really much usage anymore. So,
right.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if either of you, Matthew or Tyler, if you have a question for James with SaskPower. This is your opportunity to pose a question before we let James go. Matthew, is there anything that comes to mind when you're thinking about the road ahead for electric vehicles? What question would you pose to SaskPower?
I would just inquire further just about the secondary highway EV infrastructure, as well as the rural area expansion, as far as DC fast charging and opening up some other routes to residents in the province, and obviously third-party tourism and people coming through.
Yeah, James, it's something you've kind of acknowledged, but I think that's a question on the minds of a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's certainly one we're very aware of, and thankfully I've had the opportunity to kind of work with both Matt and Tyler on an ongoing basis for a while, and so we constantly get their feedback, and so we're looking for kind of the way that SaskPower can best support increasing the availability of charging, and particularly in those areas of need, right? We've got a decent number of chargers in some of the kind of the larger communities, but I think as was mentioned earlier, with more trucks coming available, you're going to start to see more rural residents, maybe consider a battery electric or a plug-in hybrid, and they're going to want to look to be able to charge those vehicles. And so we're always looking for kind of how SaskPower can best situate itself to support increasing the availability of charging in some of those areas where it's really needed.
Okay. I want to bring in some emails that we got from listeners. So Delwyn writes, what does it cost to recharge an electric auto battery from 10% back up to 100% charge? Tyler, is that a question you can answer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple equation, actually. It depends on the vehicle, of course. But if you have a battery that is, let's say, 70 kilowatt hours, that's pretty average. You can multiply that by your electricity rate, which is about 14 cents a kilowatt hour plus tax. So you're looking at about $10 plus tax for a 0 to 100 charge. Another way of looking at it that's a little bit easier is it's about 2.8 cents a kilometer. If you're looking at kind of an average of summer and winter driving, right? Mm-hmm. So if you compare that against what you're driving in your gas vehicle or how much that costs in your gas vehicle, that'll give you an idea of how much cheaper it is. I usually tell people it's about 5 times cheaper.
5 times cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Dan, who says, basically, has anyone done a cost comparison? This is similar to this question of a charge up versus a fill up. How much does it cost to drive Regina to Saskatoon, for example, in a Tesla versus a similar size gas car, for example? Yeah, I think a lot of people know the cost of filling up with gas to get from Saskatoon to Regina or vice versa. Matthew, do you want to just put that in perspective a bit? Taking a 2.5-hour trip, what's the cost difference?
If you're comparing apples to apples, let's say you're comparing a Tesla Model 3 to a Toyota Corolla, I would estimate that the price of driving electric to Saskatoon would probably be about half. Now, that all depends on where you're charging, depends on what kinds of chargers you're using versus are you charging at someone's house versus a third-party charger on the highway. But by far the best economics are charging at home because the price is just that much cheaper. On average, just like Tyler said, it's about $10 per charge or about $40 to $50 a month for most people to getting around, right? And actually, interesting enough, Tesla Model 3 was compared on a cost of ownership perspective to the Toyota Corolla, and they found that the Tesla Model 3 was actually a cheaper vehicle to own over 5 years than the Toyota Corolla was. So that's a very interesting stat.
What is the upfront cost these days, though? And I know it depends on the vehicle, right? Like there's quite a range, but new cars are expensive. Yeah. So what are people dishing out for an electric vehicle, Tyler?
I mean, that's a good question. I think the cheapest ones, and Matt, you can maybe confirm this too. I think we're kind of the cheaper end is probably about $35,000. For something that doesn't go terribly far. That's kind of your budget price, and then it goes up to $200,000. But the Tesla Model 3, the base model, I think is about $49,000 after the federal incentive. And a lot of people think Teslas are completely unaffordable. And if you crunch the numbers and you look at the gas savings, it's not as bad, but it's still more expensive than a gas car, 100%. There's a premium there, but that's why we're looking for incentives from the government, right? I mean, that's why we need that until the industry kind of settles down a little bit and those prices reduce. Yeah, we need some help.
Yeah. Which I'm sure people would have opinions on that. But Matt, do you have anything to add there on the price of a vehicle?
Yeah. I would just add that, sure, the Tesla Model 3 obviously does have a price premium over a car such as the Toyota Corolla. But the cost of ownership, once again, is so much cheaper for an electric vehicle versus a gasoline one, right? It's basically $50 a month to run the Tesla Model 3 with very, very minimal maintenance. Obviously, in the long term, you'll have suspension and things like that you have to, do ongoing maintenance and things. But the cost savings are insane. Like me and Tyler had mentioned there earlier, we're saving somewhere to the tune of $25,000 to $30,000 over 5 years of electric vehicle ownership versus a gas car. That is significant. If you drive it long enough, basically the vehicle will pay for itself versus a gas car.
Okay, well, here's another question. And I clearly have not bought a new vehicle in a long time. I drive a 2009 Subaru Forester. But are there enough electric vehicles for sale in Saskatchewan right now to make some of these goals happen? I mean, I know right now, no matter what vehicle you purchase, that there may be a waiting period. Like there's been, I don't know if that's resolved yet or if there's still a backlog because of issues with COVID and all of that. But are there enough EVs for sale right now, Tyler? To meet demand?
Well, it depends on the EV. Right now, Tesla's like 1 to 2 months, which is pretty good if you want to buy a new one. Other manufacturers have some on the lot, but it really depends. I mean, if everybody wanted to go out today and buy an EV, yeah, there's no way you'd run out pretty quick. But for today's demand, they're keeping up okay. They're gonna have to pick it up, I think, in the next couple of years, but it'll happen. Everyone's really starting to push pretty hard for this. So,
yeah, Matt, what are your thoughts on that? Will we be able to meet the demand, especially if the federal government has set out these goals like this?
I think we would be able to meet it, but we're going to significantly have to ramp up auto manufacturing in Canada as well as battery manufacturing, and that's no easy feat. We have to get serious about electrification in Canada if we're going to meet these goals. And a lot of it is just coming down to education of the general public. There's a ton of people who don't believe that these vehicles even work in the wintertime. And we have to get out and get the good word out that these are the better vehicle. They are the better technology. And people should get out and come and test drive one at one of our events.
Okay. I'm going to read this email from Derek who says, I drive a plug-in hybrid and chose that for convenience. I think it's important to talk about the pitfalls or the inconveniences of a full EV. I wanted to buy a full EV, just couldn't find a way to get there in my head. First issue in cold weather and the zero charging stations in the north. It was not even possible to get to my cabin during cold days. Realistically, range is 50% using heat, and that has not been addressed. Even up to 70% range loss with a strong headwind, which is certainly possible in Saskatchewan, especially in the south. Second, it's not convenient to sit and wait both in line and in a car for your vehicle to charge. Turning an 8-hour trip into a 9.5-hour trip with 3 30-minute charging stops is not convenient for me. And this assumes the chargers are working. I love the electric motor, convenience of at-home charging, and the economy of electricity over gas, and wouldn't change it. I'd buy another plug-in hybrid in an instant, as it gets me my day-to-day city travel easily, but for a one-person car family, a full EV is a long ways away. Derek, I don't know, or Matthew or Tyler, I don't know if you want to, comment on anything that was raised there in that email. I mean, some fair points.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to be realistic. And this is one of those kind of moments, I guess. For some people, EVs just aren't going to work for them. If you're towing or you got to drive to very far away areas that have poor infrastructure for charging, yeah, I mean, plug-in hybrid's probably the way to go. And I think that's fine. They're still better than strictly gas vehicles. They're still more efficient. They're still cleaner. But there's options out there, for people. And I think that he brought up a really good point. One thing that he mentioned though about charging for 1.5 hours on a 9.5-hour trip. That's a pretty accurate number. That's been my experience as well. But I don't really find it much of an inconvenience because the driving experience is better. It's safer. It's cleaner. And, if you're driving that far, your chances are you're probably on vacation. And if
you go shopping? I mean, that's why they're at the malls exactly and stuff, right? Just go spend some money.
Yeah. I mean, we've had these experiences. Just for reference, I've driven down to, Southern California. We drove to Denver, Colorado in one day from Regina. And so it doesn't stop us from doing the things we want to do. We don't own a gas vehicle. We have 2 Teslas in our household, and we drive it everywhere. And for myself, it hasn't been a problem. Spending the extra hour and a half, it's not a big issue. You stretch the legs, you go have a nice lunch.
I've heard of families going swimming.
Yeah,
their car charges.
Whatever you got to do. It's to me, it's worth it. But for other people, maybe it's not, and that's okay.
Yeah. Let's go to John, who joins us on the line from here in Saskatoon. He's got an interesting point to bring up. Hi, John.
Hi there. My concern is the logistics of actually having a full EV or even a hybrid. Quite frankly, because I don't have the access to a garage where I could protect a charging station, I would not be able to purchase an EV because I would be concerned about outside access, vandalism, and a whole bunch of other things of that nature. Not to mention the fact that it costs me about $40-50 a month to drive my fully gas-operated vehicle for all my purposes. So any concerns there? If the government were willing to build me a garage and install a 240 volt 200 amp system at no cost to me, I'd be perfectly fine with that.
I mean, I can talk from experience here. I do live in a condo, so I have underground parking, which is a little bit different from your situation. But in a condo situation, you're still able to install that outlet. It cost me, it was under $1,000, and it's been great. In your situation, if you don't have a garage and your vehicle's outside, then it's important to know that you can still put a charger or an outlet in, and you can still use that even if the car is outside. I know it doesn't protect vandalism, but the vehicle still functions even if it's outside, as long as it's plugged into that 240 volt charger at night. Even in days like today or later this week when it dips down even colder, you'll be okay. And the cost of that, we always tell people it's about $1,000 to $1,500 to wire that in. And if that's not an option, if you need to have your vehicle indoors for whatever reason, or you can't afford that the cost of having an electrician come in, then just go for a plug-in hybrid. That way you can always charge off of a 110. It won't give you as much juice as quickly, but it still works. And then you're still getting the benefit of having a more environmentally friendly vehicle, but it's still a little bit more capable. So look at your options and budget things out. Account for the costs of maintenance and electricity and fuel, and see if it's worth it.
Thanks for that answer, Tyler. I want to go to Keith now. And John, thanks for calling. I hope that that gave you some ideas there. Appreciate that. Keith is standing by from Saskatoon here. Hi, Keith.
Oh, hi there. I'm happy you're having this call. There's a lot of misinformation out there. People that don't have EVs, don't want EVs, don't like change. We have a 10-year-old 2014 EV. It's got over 210,000 kilometers. The batteries are still fine. It has never, ever been in a shop. No oil changes, no repairs, no gas, because there's way less moving parts. Yeah, the range is decreased in the winter, so what? It heats up faster. And for charging, we drove all the way from Texas. It didn't cost us anything. The charging was free all the way from Texas. Where we ran into a problem was because we had the app, looking for the charging station in Estevan at the PV Mart. Couldn't find it. Went in the store. They said they had a complaint. They had to take it out. People said they didn't like that EV charging station there.
Which is a thing that's come up in Saskatchewan. Yeah, that's definitely come up.
We've had it's people don't like change. We have a 50 amp service installed in our house for $900, so we can charge it at home. There's only one downside to an EV, and that is if you can't afford speeding tickets, they have so much extra power that you got to really, really watch it. And I mean, seriously, ours is an SUV, and I'd challenge almost any car to drive that gas vehicle. They're too fast if you don't want to drive fast for this. So that was the only downside to this. Yeah.
I appreciate you calling. Thanks for sharing your story.
I think I got 4 speeding tickets in the first 6 months.
Oh my goodness!
I shouldn't say it out loud, but
it's okay.
No, he's right.
Safe with me.
The fastest car in production right now is electric.
Oh my goodness!
It's wild, yeah.
Let's go to Marcella in Cut Knife. Hi, Marcella.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to cover is the infrastructure, charging stations. It's so important where the location is. For example, the one at Davidson is out on the highway, so it's visible. But what do you do when it's 30 above or 30 below to charge your car for an hour? You can't be walking around a confectionery store. There's got to be those locations of those charging stations have got to be where you can sit down and eat, where you can go shopping, where you can whatever. I'm just scared that when it comes to the rural infrastructure, they're going to put them out on the highways, and there's nothing you can do out there. So I hope they will consider that when they're, or I don't know whether it's SaskPower, but location of the thing is so critical. And I've had an EV for 2.5 years. I've managed to get by, but it does have my concerns in, like, for example, there should be a charging station at Unity. I live 30 kilometers from one town and 50 from another. Lloyd and North Battleford are both an hour's drive, so it's 100 kilometers. I've got enough for what I'm doing, but when I want to go further south, and it'll help to have Kindersley, but I'm not sure that I get there if it was 30 below, and maybe wind, whatever. So where they put those chargers is critical.
Yeah. Good point, Marcella. Thank you for calling. I have one last question. Thank you. I have one last question.
Sorry, if I could just interject.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Calling small towns everywhere across Saskatchewan. This is your public service announcement to reinvigorate your main street by putting an electric vehicle charger to encourage business in your restaurants, local shops, and recreational activity areas. We've been trying to do this for years and years, and these small towns want nothing to do with an EV charger. Well, there you go. You want to reinvigorate your town? Bring an electric vehicle charger in.
Mm-hmm. We only have about a minute left. I do want to ask you, though, about the technology or the work that's being done to help retrofit vehicles. And I think there's a company in Saskatoon that's working on this. Teal, Tyler, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I mean, retrofits in general have been a thing for a couple of years. I'll try and keep this short here. There's companies in BC. There's one called EV West. They actually sell kits. You can convert like anything from a VW to a Porsche. They're probably $15,000, $20,000. Away you go. You have an EV suddenly with their pre-existing gas car. Teal EV's been really good. I mean, they're developing trucks here in Saskatoon. Rokeon's making mining vehicles. So we got a lot of local stuff. It's great.
Interesting. Well, the conversation will continue. A big thanks to all of you for being with us today. Matthew, thank you.
Thank you.
It's Matthew Pointer. I think James Fick might still be on the line, lead consultant on EVs for SaskPower. James, thank you so much for being generous with your time today. I appreciate it. And Tyler, thanks to you too.
Thank you.